Good evening, everybody on Spanish United. How are you? This is Enrique, founder and director of Spanish United. Tonight on my show, I have Eros. He's one of my administrators of the group, and he's also the director of the Miami chapter of Spanish United in Florida. So, Eros, go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience.
Hey everyone, it's great being here tonight. My name is Eros, as Enrique introduced me. I'm from Miami, Florida, born to Cuban parents that came in the 90s, and I've always been very proud of my culture, very proud of my people, and being Hispanic in general. We have so much flavor. We have so many great things to offer, And I pretty much joined this group because I want to see the welfare of the Hispanic community improve overall, especially here abroad and in the United States as well.
Awesome, excellent. So I wanted to ask you, Eros, how were you introduced into the group? Like, how did you find out about Spanish United?
Well, if I remember correctly, I saw some of your posts on Facebook, and actually, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Actually, I saw your post on Facebook. I saw what you were doing. You created Spanish United, and I was interested. I was interested because you don't really see too many advocacy groups that protect exclusively Hispanic interests. Most advocacy groups or activist groups that you see are intermingled with interest of other groups, and
Hmm.
that's not really what I'm here for. And I really liked what you were doing, Enrique, in that sense, and that's why I decided to join.
Thank you. And that's the whole point of Spanish United, because I feel that other Hispanic groups that form, they form with sincerity, but unfortunately they get corrupted. They break down or
Yeah.
they become gangs, and then they become the opposite of what they started. That's what makes
Yes.
Spanish United different, is that we are exclusively for Hispanics. It's like, other people can join as far as supporting, but as far as the group being exclusively Hispanic, we are an exclusively Hispanic group. That's why all of my administrators are all Hispanic. They could be mixed with something else, but they have to be Hispanic to be either directors or administrators of the group, because I want this group to be exclusively for Hispanic people.
Yes. 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 Yes.
So
No,
I
I understand what you're doing. Yes.
I wanted to ask you, tonight's topic is going to be about Hispanophobia and the Cuban community. As you know, Cuban Americans or Cuban immigrants, unlike other Hispanic groups, they have like a special status. So in many times, it kind of creates friction with other Hispanics, because
Hmm.
Cubans are the only Hispanic group in America, with the exception of Puerto Ricans that are U.S. citizens, that are not considered economic migrants because of the current status in Cuba. So when they are here as refugees, they are given special privileges and special help that other Hispanic groups don't have. So that's one of the reasons why Cubans tend to be more successful. They tend to be more patriotic and more loyal to the United States and other Hispanic groups.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you, for you being from Miami, do you see any type of Hispanophobia from the Cuban community to other Hispanics, and do you feel that there is friction between other Hispanic groups and the Cuban community?
Well, first of all, I think there's friction between every Hispanic group and every other Hispanic group, and that doesn't exclude Cubans with other groups as well. And part of the reason is because of what you mentioned. There seems to be a sort of resentment from other uh, Hispanics from other Latin American countries towards Cubans because of the special refugee status that Cubans have been getting since the late 1990s after the wet foot dry foot law that Bill Clinton passed.
Hmm.
Um, and I understand why it causes resentment. Cubans historically for the last 20, actually since the 1960s, we've been coming to the United States as as political refugees. Whereas many other Latin Americans has been coming as economic migrants. Of course, there are exceptions because Cuba is not the only country in all of Latin America that had communism and violation of human rights.
Hmm.
There are many other countries that have seen this, Why did Cuba specifically get the special status? That I don't know. Maybe we should go back and ask the president at the time that approved it. Um, but it worked out that way, and obviously Cubans took advantage of it, and yeah, it did instill some sort of loyalty and I wouldn't say loyalty, but uh, a sense of gratitude to the United States for for giving Cubans that opportunity to come to the United States and be in a place where their human rights are not blatantly being violated and where they can actually succeed in whatever occupation they decide to undertake.
Mhm. So I wanted to ask you, from your perspective, do you believe a lot of Cuban Americans, especially the ones that are second, third generation that are already American born, do you believe that many of those Cuban Americans that have become, successful, integrate into American society, do you believe they don't identify themselves as Hispanic, or do they see themselves more as white? And do you feel that
It's
they look as the other Hispanics as being inferior to them?
so that's a very interesting question because I think there's a little bit of both. If I have
Okay.
to be honest, I think there's a little bit of both. There are, and like I said, this is not just a Cuban phenomenon. We've seen this with many other Hispanic people uh, that have come to the United States. Some of them retain a very strong Hispanic identity, and some of them adopt a stronger um, host country identity, if I can say that.
Hmm.
They feel more American. A lot of them end up not even speaking Spanish. Their parents probably spoke to them Spanish at home, but their Spanish, they grew up and they hardly spoke Spanish with their peers and with their friends. So then, as a consequence, they end up identifying more uh, with their American friends.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it's normal that we see the same phenomena in Cubans. Um, there is both. There is both.
Okay. And how do you feel the Cuban community can engage with other Hispanics? Because I feel that Cubans, for being the most successful, the most educated, the most high income people in the country, I feel that instead of being insular and just not caring about the other Hispanics, I feel that they should engage the wider Hispanic community instead of demonizing them or putting them down, like not all, but like many of the far right elites that are in Miami. So how do you think the Cuban American community can engage or dialogue with other Hispanic groups, to bring unity and to bring strength?
Well, I think that's happening already. I think that's happening already in Miami. In Miami, we see a lot of dialogue between other groups of Latin Americans and Cubans. Cubans is the largest Hispanic group in Miami. Every other every other nationality of Hispanic, they're the minority in the city. So, but we do see a lot of that dialogue, and I think our relationships are very cordial. I think we have very cordial relationships with other Hispanics. Obviously, there's always going to be differences because we're not the same nationalities. We are the same ethnicity, but we're not the same nationalities.
Hmm.
And then, there's always going to be differences between groups. Um, and that's always going to cause some type of animosity for people that are rubbed in the wrong way. But what I think our job to do is not alienate a specific group of Hispanics, because really what that ends up doing is showing an internal weakness to people that do not want to see it succeed. And what I think what we really should focus on is focus on our commonalities, because, like I said, listen, a Mexican is not the same thing as a Venezuelan. Venezuelan is not the same thing as a Puerto Rican or a Cuban or Argentinian or Chilean. We're all very different, but the way that I see it, we fall under the umbrella of Hispanidad, of the greater Hispanic ethnicity, and that's the beautiful part. It's a different. We're all different expressions of Hispanidad. So what I think we have to do is focus on the things that unite us, that we share, our common Hispanic, our common heritage, our common Hispanic heritage, And whoever doesn't like that, whoever doesn't see eye to eye with us, then they're just gonna miss the boat. That's their problem, you know. And I think that's what we should do. We should focus on whoever wants to cooperate with us, whether it be it in the Cuban community, be it in the Puerto Rican or the Mexican, so on and so forth. You know, whoever wants to overlook our tribal differences and you know unite based on our common heritage, which is Hispanic. You know, coming from Spain and Portugal, where back in the old world, you know, then okay, then we can unite. You know, we can do something together and like I've said before, man, we all have so many beautiful things to offer. You know, Cuba has sugar, cigars, Criollo food. Puerto Rico has salsa. We have salsa too.
Mhm.
Venezuela has their thing. Mexico has their thing. You know, and then I think we should all cherish that and come together and enjoy that. And most
I agree with you.
importantly, work on our yeah, and most importantly, work on our financial positions,
Hmm.
our economic standing in our country, because that's really what's keeping us back.
Hmm.
You know.
I agree with you. I've mentioned this many times in many forums on the group, and even with other podcasts that a lot of Hispanics believe that they could just come here, or let's say just be here, and they don't believe that they need an education to succeed. And I
Hmm.
believe that's an oxymoron, because it's like, um, if someone works a job that is considered menial by other people's standards, you that's something that you do temporarily until you get yourself on your feet. You don't do that long term, and you don't pass that as a career to your children. And I think that
Of course.
that is something that needs to change. And I also believe that Hispanics that become successful and become wealthy, instead of just moving out of the community and just forgetting about the community, they need to reinvest into that community, so that way that
Yes,
money stays
yes,
in, that money gets redistributed to everybody else, and then people
I
can
agree.
could start businesses, start centers. Because again, I mentioned this many times with other races that come here, like the Chinese, the Indians, the Arabs, etc. Uh, they invest in each other. They help each other out, and it's very rare that you will see an Indian, for example, from India, joining a gang, or doing carjacking, or stealing,
Hmm.
or committing crimes, because they have a
Yes.
social safety net. And I believe
Hmm.
that that's what's lacking in the Hispanic community, is a social safety net.
Yes, yes.
And I'm not talking about welfare. I'm talking about a
I know
personal
exactly what you're
safety.
talking about. Yes, yes. You're talking about a social infrastructure a communal infrastructure that supports the well-being of all of our members. I
Exactly.
know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
And I see this all the time when I go, like, to many parts of San Gabriel Valley here in California. Like, all of that county is different cities, but they're all Chinese. And what amazes me
Yes.
every time I go there, like once a month, to wash my car, is how clean it is, how safe it is. Everybody looks after each other. I see kids going to after school programs, cultural centers where they learn Chinese. They have like their own healthcare things, which is open to everybody, but they provide healthcare, dentistry, optometry, to little to low cost to the people. And when I go to Hispanic
Yes. Yes.
areas, I don't see that. And I say to myself, why
Uh-huh.
is it that these people that have been here less time than we have, how come they've been able to
Yes.
succeed and we don't succeed? And what does that
Hmm.
give? What is that reflection of us as a people to everybody else?
Yeah, I'm really glad you're asking these questions because what I realize is that a lot of people in the Hispanic community never even bother to ask these questions. So the fact that you're even beginning to inquire upon this is a huge step because you're raising consciousness, you're raising awareness about issues and about how, we need to step up our game. So I'm really glad you're talking about this actually.
Well, yeah, this is the whole purpose. The whole purpose of Spanish United is not about protesting or marching or pointing a finger at other people, but we also have to look at what are we doing wrong, ask the questions that we need to ask. And one thing
Yes.
that I see that Hispanics are keeping other communities clean. They're cleaning everybody else's garbage. They're doing everybody else's job. but I don't see them looking after themselves, looking after their own
Mhm.
communities. It's like, why is it that Hispanics can be good at cutting other people's yard, but they don't cut their yard?
Mhm.
How come they could
Yeah.
keep their other people's neighborhoods nice, but they keep their communities filthy? And I'm not here to demonize or bash anybody.
Mhm. Of course. Of course.
I just feel that Hispanics need to have a little bit more self-respect. And self-respect
Yes.
starts
A hundred
with,
percent.
yes, and
Oh
self-respect,
man, I'm so glad you mentioned that.
yeah,
I'm
self-respect
so glad you
start.
mentioned that.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Self-respect starts with loving yourself, loving your family, loving your community. And the only way you can do that is that, yeah, the people, especially the youth, needs to be instilled the values of Hispanic pride, Hispanic identity. One thing that
Of
I
course.
see with Hispanic youth is that they either want to be white or black, white or black, white or black. You don't see that with
Yes.
Asian
Yes.
youth or
Yes.
Armenian youth. They're
Yeah.
proud to be who they are. But Hispanics is like,
Definitely.
they always want to be like the black people, acting black, talking black. I'm talking about the subculture of the black people, not the
Yeah.
educated black people that are decent. Which is which
Uh
is
huh.
which is which is which is the negative side. And then you have a lot of Hispanics that want to be like the white people. If they could pass as white, they want to be like the white people and adopt the same negative attitude that the subculture of the white people, which is also negative, have towards everybody else. And I and I
Yes. Yes.
think and I think that Hispanics need to start instilling pride in its youth, because if we don't, within the next couple of
Yeah.
decades, we're going to either disappear as a group, or we're gonna be third or fourth class citizens serving Asian people.
Yeah. So the thing about it is that it's exactly what you mentioned. Why we're not taking care of the communities because we don't value ourselves. Why is our youth becoming adopting, assimilating other cultures? For the same reason. Why are we not starting businesses and building our families, and why are we not doing any of this? And it's for the exact same reason you just mentioned right now. And I think this ties in to the Hispanophobia of the greater Hispanic community in general, because I see the same pattern not only in just one Hispanic nationality, one Hispanic community, but in many other Hispanic community as well, where like in Cubans, I've seen it in Puerto Ricans, I've seen it in Mexicans, I've seen it in Colombians, where we have this pattern of um, looking down on where we come from and our roots. And I was pondering on this today because when you mentioned to me that you wanted to do a podcast with me about this topic, I was thinking about this. I was thinking about what I was thinking about the issue. To create, to prepare the substance in my mind already, right?
Mhm.
And what I realize is that where a lot of this self hate comes from is largely a a disillusionment. We're disappointed in ourselves. We're disappointed in our politicians. We're disappointed in our leaders for betraying us, for folding to international pressures of other countries that want to use our resources for their own, for their economy. We're angry at, we're disappointed that we've let ourselves down so many times. Because when I think about the grievances of the Cuban community, for example, and where some of our antipathy of 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 Cubans, because some Cubans look down on other Cubans. Like I've seen this in all nationalities. I'm not trying to pick on Cubans, because I love my people, but this is the reality. You know, um, we tend to we tend to look down on our roots, on our culture, and I realize that it really comes from a place of disappointment. We're disillusioned with ourselves, because we've seen that what have we amounted to ever since we won our independence from Spain? What really have we amounted to? What have we created? And you look all across our countries, and what we really see is an abundance of poverty and corruption.
Mhm.
We see our politicians um, being sold out to special interests, special international interests that favor themselves and favor the elite class of our native countries, but the people are just completely, just betrayed and in shambles. And then what I realize is that, a lot of Hispanics, especially the ones that come here to the United States, they just want to distance themselves from that. And that's where I think it's stemming from. I'm putting my finger on the pulse, and then that's what I'm getting.
Hmm. And how do you feel that could be addressed? Because it's like I feel that Hispanics, every time there are leaders or movements that want to talk about these issues, it's like they either want to brush it under the carpet, or they ridicule you, or they think that you're wasting your time.
Yes, yes,
So how do
yes,
you
that's right.
how do you think we can address that? Because it doesn't matter if Hispanics are immigrants or we are born here, we're here. And I hate to say it right now, we are public enemy number one of everybody. We are the punching bag of our other races. We are abused by everybody. We're always being kicked down, and you don't see Hispanics rioting like African Americans do or other groups do. It's like we just take it, take it, take
Yeah,
it. And so what image is that we're showing to Hispanics, that we're just going to be abused?
yeah. I think that question is it's multifaceted. It requires a really in-depth analysis of our situation. First of all, I think we're definitely a reckoning force in this country, considering that we're composed of 30% of the population of this country. Not to, and that's only the ones that we can count because they are documented here. You follow what I'm saying? There's a lot of other Hispanics that are not documented, so then that number might be a little bit higher. Um, so we're definitely an economic reckoning force. We're a significant contributor to the economy of this country. Um, from from the Hispanics that are in this country, and also from our economies abroad that also contribute to this country's economy. So I think that that's something that we have to remind ourselves. We're a reckoning force. By we're at the moment we're the largest minority in this country. That's not a
Mm-hmm.
joke.
Mm-hmm.
That's a real thing. And then for some people that are afraid of that, they might want to keep us under their thumb. They might want to keep us oppressed, and they might want to keep us from seeing the bigger opportunities, and just keep us as a menial labor working class.
Mm-hmm.
There is a possibility that that exists. um and it's threatening. It's threatening to a lot of people. It's threatening to a lot of people. They feel like we're going to take their jobs, and it's true, we're probably going to take their jobs, especially if we educate ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
um but we just have to do what we have to do for our own sake.
Mm-hmm. I
We
agree
can't
with you.
just we can't just sit around and twiddle our thumbs. No, that's not the way we're going to do it. We're going to contribute to this country. We're going to contribute to this country. We're going to chip in. We're going to do our part as fellow Americans as well, because we are American. We're American in the sense that we're Latin American. We're part of the um
The Americas.
we're part of the Americas. And a lot of us are United States Americans as well. That doesn't make us any less Hispanic. That doesn't The fact that we become American or United States citizens, that doesn't necessarily make us white.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
Because we're still Hispanic. We can still be proud of our culture. This is the way that I feel. We can still be proud of our culture. We can still be proud of our roots, and contribute equally in a very wholehearted way to the social web of this country. And listen, I drive around this country a lot, man, and everywhere I go, in the most remote towns, in the middle of nowhere, in Oklahoma, I've been through Oklahoma, Nebraska, I've been through Kansas, and every single town that I go through, I see a Hispanic restaurant. Every single town that I go through, a Hispanic restaurant, and a lot of the people of the town, um, being not Hispanic, they love it. They're there all the time. And you look at the restaurant, it's full of customers. And then what that tells me? That tells me that in a certain way we are appreciated. In a certain way, we do have an appeal. We're not some people might want to some people might want to frame us in the light that we're repulsive to our host country, and I don't think we are. And I think that's exactly our advantage because
Mm,
we do contribute economically and we do contribute culturally. So then I believe that as long as we educate ourselves, we instill value in our own culture, we can do a lot more. We can really shape and mold the future in this country and in Latin America in general in the near future.
mhm. And I believe that the only way that can be done is number one is to have self love for yourself, self love for your community, and at the same time, change the way that we behave, and also change the way that we work with our money. One thing that I see with the
Yes,
Hispanic community is that their priorities are not in order. It's like they waste money on things that they don't need, which that money can be used
hmm,
to start a college fund for their children. That could be
sure.
used to start up a community center, for the youth, language schools.
Definitely.
I just feel that Hispanics that do have money, unfortunately, they waste it on things they don't need. And I feel that
Yes.
the only way that they get themselves out of poverty is that they need to start putting their priorities where it needs to be. Instead of getting drunk,
Yes.
getting high, wasting that money on quinceaneras or putting rims on cars or going to strip clubs, those things are not
Yes.
necessarily those are temporary things. They need to
Yes.
invest in on a long term, because again, bringing back the Asians, when the Asians come here, a lot of them don't speak English. um, a lot of them come from countries that are even worse than Latin America. A lot of them are
Yes.
fleeing
Yep.
dictatorships.
Mm-hmm.
um, and a lot of them are even more discriminated than Hispanic people are. But
Yep.
I don't see them letting race and color determine who they are. It's like they just move from where they were, and then within a generation or within that generation, they move up and they prosper. So those same people
Yes.
that a lot of Hispanics unfortunately like to make fun of, calling them whatever, are the same people that they have to work for and clean up after their kids. So who
Mm-hmm.
are who
Yeah.
so
They're
yeah, go ahead, I'm sorry.
yeah. They're not complacent, man. They have a mission, and they're serious about it.
And I feel that Hispanics need to be more serious on mission, and so they cannot have the mentality that, I'm going to enjoy life now and then worry about it
Yeah.
later, because then later's never going to come. And then you see
For
people
sure.
that are 30, 40, 50, 60 years old, and they're still living in poverty, and their kids haven't really advanced. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
we cannot
Mm-hmm.
blame institutional racism for everything. Yes, institutional racism
True.
is there. Yes. Is there discrimination? Absolutely. Is
Yep.
there people that are going to demonize us? Absolutely. But if we don't change our behavior or the way that we behave or how we act, we're just going to continue to feed those stereotypes. Like I've said this before, many Hispanic men are viewed as violent people. We're viewed as machistas. We're viewed as, not good people. And unfortunately, a lot of those Hispanics feed that stereotype. And I think that
Yep.
we need to change that stereotype, that narrative.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, so I mean, I've spoken about this before as well, especially in our chat group. Frivolity is an issue in the Hispanic community, because, like you said, it draws away a lot of our energy from being productive people and contributive people to being consumers. And overconsumption is one of the issues that is one of the internal issues that we have as a group. We have many great things, like I said before. Our music, our party, like we're known for that, and people love us for that. It's a great thing. We're happy people, and I love that about my culture as well. But what's really going to give us the edge is for us to be more industrious, for us to be able to say, okay, now party time is done. Now it's time to put my head down. Time to eat mud. Time to grind as hard as I can, and see myself and see myself until I see myself until the other end.
Hmm.
And that's it. I have this goal to accomplish, and I'm gonna get it done. No ifs, ands, or buts. And put aside the complacency, put aside the frivolity, put aside whatever laziness we might have for the time being.
Hmm.
And I think that's ultimately going to help us improve our image, and also improve our inner group cohesion and prevent Hispanophobia. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because once we start believing in ourselves, then we start focusing more. We start getting serious about our objectives. And that's gonna help our self love and our self perception. And self perception is very important in this.
Hmm. And do you believe that popular culture within the Hispanic community kind of like influences a lot of the Hispanic youth to not be productive? Because I feel that a lot of Hispanic youth, when I speak to them, I don't hear them saying, when I get older, I want to be a scientist or neurologist or an engineer, etc.
Yes.
You want to know what they want to be? They want to be rappers. They want to be athletes. They look at people like Bad Bunny as a role model. Can you believe that?
Yes, 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 yes,
You know,
yes, yes.
that's
Yeah, yeah,
sad. That's sad.
yeah. That's entertainment. Bad Bunny is entertainment.
Right.
That's entertainment. Let's leave that in entertainment. You know what I mean? That's not
Hmm.
somebody. That's not somebody all of us should look up to become.
Hmm.
Whoever, if you want to be entertainment and you want to be in that specific genre, okay, fine. Then maybe you want to network with him. But a lot of us are going to fill different positions in society, and then what I think is happening also, I'm just not seeing us dreaming. I'm just not seeing us aspiring to anything great. Maybe because I don't know. Maybe I really don't know what it is at the moment. I'm thinking that it's probably because we lack opportunities in our home countries, and then and then we have a how do you call that, a a ceiling in our potential. You follow what I mean? Like we
Hmm.
put a low ceiling in our own potential,
Hmm.
possibly because we've already been conditioned in our home countries to think that we're not going to really achieve much because it's just not possible where we where we come from.
Right.
So then I think that mentality might be transferred over to a lot of the Hispanics here
Right.
in the United States.
I agree with you. And one thing that I see with many of the Hispanic households is like the parents are actually discouraging of their children getting an education. It's like I know of many Hispanic
Yeah.
parents that they don't want them to get an education. They are opposed to it. They feel that it's a waste of time. They feel that that's what white people do. That's not for us.
Well, you know what? I haven't seen that per se. What I have seen is, like, for example, like I'll give you an example of my family. My family, they wanted me to get secure jobs. They didn't. Every time I got a sales job, or I was in real estate, for example, or like, oh, wow, that's not good. That's not safe. It's not gonna happen. And and I've seen that happen a lot amongst Hispanics. It's they're afraid. They're afraid. Some of them are afraid of just failing. Some of them are afraid, like, oh, maybe you should get a secure and safe job here at this good company, so on and so forth. That's going to be able to pay your bills and so on and so forth. And that's I see that a lot. I see that a lot.
Hmm. And I also feel that it's like they feel that just working with their hands is the only thing that they can do. It's like it's like I want to see the Hispanic people dream, to dream to do better things. I want to see more Hispanics that are Nobel Peace Prize winners. I want to see Hispanics that are Pulitzer material. I want to see Hispanics that are contributing in the science.
For sure.
I don't want our people just to be known to be rappers, musicians, and cheap labor. And the same thing with our women.
Mhm.
It's like I want to see our women have more self-respect. I don't want our women to be
Mhm.
seen as, as a as basically a toilet seat for everybody else. It's like you see everybody
Yeah.
else wanting to get with Hispanic women, but you will not see Hispanic men getting with other races. It's like, no, they don't allow that. But other races don't have a problem using our women as a toilet seat and then flushing them. To me, that's very,
Yeah.
very, very disgusting and repugnant.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very upsetting. Yes.
And I feel that needs to change. And the only way that that's going to change is going to be through education and also self-respect, and at the same time, you know, breaking that stigma of that you can only be a certain thing in life, but you cannot be anything else. Because that's the biggest barrier
That's
that
it.
we have is the stigma that all that
Uh-huh.
we are peons. We can only be peons, and that's it. Hispanics have to break that peon mentality.
I agree 100%. For
And
sure. We have so much, man. We have so much to offer, man. We have so much to offer. We can definitely do it. I'm optimistic. I'm realistic, but I like to keep an optimistic outlook.
I do too, and I feel that there is hope, and especially now with all of the civil rights groups and social movements that are happening now in the country for more racial equality, economic justice. I think that's a great thing, but there can never be true social justice or racial justice if there is no economic justice. And the only way you could get
Yeah.
economic justice is through education. And the only way you could get
Hmm.
an education is that it needs to be emphasized. It needs to be spoken about. Because
Yep.
like I said, that's the only way the Hispanic community is going to have a future. Is through education. That needs to
Yep.
change, and I feel that it is slowly changing, but I think we need to have more leaders,
Yeah.
more
For sure.
people that emphasize it, and also a lot of Hispanics that are well-to-do need to invest in the community by creating after school programs, creating cultural centers where they could learn culture, learn language at the same time getting
Hmm.
SAT preparation. So that way
Yep.
they could prepare themselves, because Hispanics are going to have to compete with an industrial high tech world, and if we don't get the skills that we need to be competitive, we're going to be left in the dust.
Yep. That's right.
That's in the
That's
dust.
right. So we have to get to work. We have to get to work. Stop the self hate. Stop the self
Absolutely.
hate. Stop the self
Absolutely.
loathing. Embrace each other. Smile at each other. And put our heads down and work.
Absolutely.
Get to work and strengthen our families. Because that's another issue. That's a very big issue.
Yes.
Um, the unity of the family, of the nuclear family in Hispanic households. Divorces are rampant, and that really affects education opportunities for our
Oh
young
yeah.
people. So we really need to work on we really need to work on our relationships, our romantic relationships, because that's really destroying. I think that's another big impediment. Actually, our nuclear families are just fractured. We're
Mhm,
just fractured
mhm.
completely, and then and then next thing you know, you have a child that's growing up in a broken home, and then he's under stress, he's under emotional trauma, and then that ultimately affects his ability, or his or her ability, to be able to perform, either in education or in the world, in whatever job they might take up, or whether they start a business. That it affects them. It affects them big time. So I think that's another big thing that we have to work on.
Right. And also another issue is mental health. There is a lot of mental illness and mental disorders in the Hispanic community, and that also affects the success of the community. And I think that there needs to be more resources put into mental health. Mental health is a big, big factor in our community not not succeeding, because people
For
don't
sure.
talk about their problems. They keep everything in. Instead of seeking help, they get into alcohol abuse, drug abuse. And I
Hmm.
think the biggest drug that Hispanic people have, and a lot of people don't want to give it up, and I'm not saying they
Alcohol.
should, but is alcohol. That's the number one
La cerveza.
destroying. La cerveza, exactly. That's the number one destroyer of our people.
Yeah,
I've s-
we go overboard. We go overboard with it.
yeah, I've seen people end up completely broke and lives destroyed
Yeah.
because of the consumption of alcohol.
Yeah, that's horrible, man. That's a horrible way to go down.
Oh yeah, and it's very sad. It's very sad.
It's shame. It's shameful actually.
Oh yeah, because it's a poison.
Yeah,
It's a poison,
I
and
mean, just think about it. Like beer caused your downfall. Alcohol caused your downfall. That's kind of shameful, man.
hmm and the
You know.
biggest thing that gets me is um, that you see a lot of alcohol. What do you call it? Not alcohol. Liquor stores in every Hispanic area. Then
Oh
you see schools. Then you see
yeah.
cultural centers, and I think that's done intentionally to destroy the community as a whole.
Yeah. Yeah. It is
It's
possible.
poison. It's poison.
Yeah. Yeah. It is possible. You know that increases the accessibility to it, and that probably contributes to the problem as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think that Hispanics really need to keep away from it because it's a poison. It doesn't serve any productive purpose, and I feel that
Yeah.
negative forces out there want our youth to be hooked into alcohol, so that way we don't become educated, we don't become successful, we just continue the same cycle of poverty and violence.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not good. It's not good. It's not good at all. That ties back into the self love, and it all ties back into the same topic we're discussing today.
Right. So thank you so much for being on the show, Eros. I really appreciate your feedback. You've been very helpful, very insightful. So before we go, do you have any final thoughts or comments you would like to give?
Um. Yeah. So I'll leave off with this. I said earlier in this podcast. It's great. We're really great people. We have great food. We love to dance. We love our music, and that's a really great thing. And I never want to lose that because that really makes us unique. It gives us a very special appeal. We're happy people, regardless of whatever hardships we're going through. We're generally very happy people with a positive outlook in life. But what I think we should do is temper that with a bit industriousness,
hmm
and endeavor on improving social cohesion, improving our nuclear families, and improving ourselves economically, be it by starting a business or by exploring career options. So I really think it's those three things. It's improve our social cohesion as a community, strengthen our nuclear families, and be more productive.
I
Right,
agree
that's
with
what I
you.
want to leave off. I think those 3 points, those are fundamental things that we have to improve in order to see a reversal, an uptrend in our well-being and in our success.
I agree with you 100%. Thank you so much, Eros, for being on the show. Really appreciate it. So as soon as I'm done with the podcast, I'm going to upload it, and then I'm going to send it to you and share it as a link.
Awesome, awesome. Thank you so much, Enrique. I appreciate it.
Not you too. Have yourself a wonderful day.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Bye bye.